Hello, my name is Lewis and welcome to Gathering the Magic. Today we're looking at a $55 budget Urza Prince of Kroog deck tech. From the Brothers War, Urza gives artifact creatures you control +2/+2 and you can pay 6 to create a token that's a copy of target artifact you control, except it's a 1/1 soldier creature in addition to its other types. This deck is all about those artifacts to give other artifacts flash, flying, copying those big artifact spells and outvaluing our opponents for the win. Now, let's get straight into the deck tech. As always, we're starting this budget brew off hot with all of that ramp. First we have Burnish Heart that we can pay and sack to search your library for 2 basic lands, putting them onto the field tapped. And Solemn Simulacrum to ETB and get us a basic land onto the field tapped. And when Sad Robot dies, you draw a card. There's Flying Ornithopter of Paradise to add 1 mana of any colour, and Gold Mirror to add a plains to your mana pool. We have Silver Mirror to add a blue mana, and Palladium Mirror to add 2 colourless to your mana pool. Mana Dorks work well in this deck, ramp and get a +2/+2 buff thanks to Urza. There's Commander Sphere to add either Azorius colours, and Mind Stone to add a colourless, both with that secondary sacking option to get some card draw. We have Arcane Signet to add either white or blue, and Azorius Signet to pay tap and add both Azorius colours. There's Gilded Lotus to add 3 mana of any 1 colour, and Power Stone Shard to add a colourless for each artifact you control named Power Stone Shard. 2 interesting options here to use Urza's second ability to copy, or just copy with other spells coming up later in this video. We have Liquimetal Torque to add a colourless or tap to make target non-land permanent an artifact in addition to its other types until the end of turn. And finally, we have Sol Ring, because Sol Ring. Before we get onto that artifact army, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe down below for all things MTG. Subscribing is completely free to do, and it helps our channel grow and grow as we head towards 3,000 subscribers. Another way to help support the channel is to use our referral code gathering-the-magic when signing up to Card Market. Shout out to Kate and Source for using our code. You love to see it. Now we're looking at the artifact army to anger our opponents. First up is Chief of the Foundry and Master of Ethereum to both give other artifact creatures you control +1/+1. Ethereum's power and toughness are equal to the number of artifacts you control. We have Ethereum Sculptor and Foundry Inspector to make artifact spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. This Flying Joyous Familiar, this is historic spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. And Steel Overseer to tap and put a 1/1 counter on each artifact creature you control. These Urza decks need to go artifact creature heavy. Once Urza's out, they're getting that +2/+2 pump and can start wrecking down on your opponents. There's Cyberdrive Awakener to give other creatures you control flying. When it ETBs until end of turn, each non-creature artifact you control becomes an artifact creature with base power 4/4. And Crypto Thrall to give other artifact creatures you control hexproof. We have Liberator Urza's Battlethopter that says you may cast colourless and artifact spells as though they had flash. Whenever you cast a spell, if the amount of mana spent to cast that spell is greater than the Liberator, put a 1/1 counter on it. And Shimmer Mirror that says you may cast artifact spells as though they had flash. There's Meteor Golem that ETBs destroying target non-land permanent and opponent controls, and Mirror Battlesphere to ETB and create 4 1/1 Mirror artifact tokens. When it attacks, you may tap X untapped mirror you control. If you do, Battlesphere gets +X/+0 until end of turn and deals X damage to defending player. 2 great cards to use Urza's secondary ability with and create a second copy of. We have Bronze Guardian with Dual Strike, Ward, and gives other artifacts you control Ward 2. Its power is equal to the number of artifacts you control. And Classic Naught Drop Ornithopter. There's Junk Diver and Mirror Retriever that when die, return target artifact card from your graveyard to your hand. And for some more graveyard artifact recursion, we have Scrap Trawler, that when it or another artifact you control is put into a graveyard from the field, return to your hand target artifact card in your graveyard with lesser mana value. And Psy Master Thopterist, this is whenever you cast an artifact spell, create a 1/1 colourless Thopter artifact creature token with flying, and we can sack 2 artifacts to draw a card. On to the final 3, there's Flying Flashy Research Thief, this is whenever a creature you control deals damage to a player, draw a card. An Affinity Loving Thought Monitor, that when ETBs, draw 2 cards. Lastly, there's Tezzeret Artifice Master to +1 and create a 1/1 colourless Thopter artifact token with flying. It can also draw as cards and ult to search your library on your end step for a permanent card, putting it straight onto the field. We've looked at the artifact creatures, now let's look at every artifact loving card in our deck. First up is Brilliant Restoration to return all artifact and enchantment cards from your graveyard to the field. And Dance of the Manse to return up to X target artifact and or non-aura enchantments with converted mana cost X or less from your graveyard to the field. If X is 6 or more, those permanents are 4/4 creatures in addition to their other types. there's Padim Console of Innovation to give artifacts you control hexproof, and at the beginning of your upkeep, if you control the artifact with the highest mana value or tied, draw a card. An Emery Lurker of the Lock that costs 1 less to cast for each artifact you control. When it ETBs, mill the top 4 cards of your library into your graveyard, and you can tap Emery to choose an artifact in your graveyard. You may cast that card this turn. Not only do we have Urza beefing up our artifact army, but this overwhelming support of cards to give them hexproof, get some big recursion, and those token creators will make your ever-growing army hard to take down. There's Thopter Spy Network that at the beginning of your upkeep, if you control an artifact, create a 1/1 colourless Thopter artifact token with flying, and when one or more artifact creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, draw a card. And Tempered Steel to give artifact creatures you control +2/+2. We have March of Progress to choose target artifact creature you control. For each creature chosen this way, create a token that's a copy of it, also being able to overload. A Masterful Replication to create 2 3/3 colourless artifact golem tokens, or choose target artifact you control. Each of the artifact you control becomes a copy of that artifact until end of turn. There's Cloud Key to ETB choosing artifacts. Spells you cast of the chosen type cost 1 less to cast. And Triumphant Reckoning to return all artifact, enchantment and planeswalker cards from your graveyard to the field. We have Improvisational Whir of Invention to search your library for an artifact card with mana value X or less, putting it onto the field. An Unwinding Clock to untap all artifacts you control during each other player's untap step. We have Mystic Forge to look at the top card of your library anytime. You can cast artifact and colourless spells from the top of your library. And another Improv Loving card in Organic Extinction to destroy all non-artifact creatures. With a bunch of one-sided artifact removal or recursion options, there is a constant threat of making your board super strong or just the only person with a board state. There's Affinity Loving Thoughtcast to draw 2 cards, and one with the Machine to draw cards equal to the highest mana value amongst artifacts you control. There's Dispatch to tap target creature, exiling it if you control 3 or more artifacts, and Lens Flare that deals 5 damage to target attacking or blocking creature. Finally, we have Saga the Antiquities War. 1 and 2 say look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may reveal an artifact from among them and put it into your hand. And 3 says artifacts you control become artifact creatures with base power toughness 5/5 until end of turn. Before we finish on up with those lands, let's look at the best of the rest in this budget brew. Sticking on brands with artifact counter spells, there's Access Denied to counter target spell. Create X 1/1 colourless Thopter tokens with flying, where X is that creature's mana value. And the OG with counter spell. There's Rewind to counter target spell, untapping up to 4 lands, and Unwind to counter target non-creature spell, untapping up to 3 lands. For removal we have Generous Gift to destroy target permanent. Its caster creates a 3/3 green elephant creature token. And Return to Dust to exile target artifact or enchantment. If you cast this spell during your main phase, you may exile up to 1 other artifact or enchantment. Lastly, there's Classic Swords to Plowshares to exile target creature. Its controller gains life equal to its power. As always, we're rounding off this deck tech with all of those lands. First, starting up with the basics, we have 13 plains and 13 island. There's Command Tower to add either of those Azorius colours. An Exotic Orchard to add 1 mana of any colour a land an opponent controls could produce. We've added Evolving Wilds and Terramorphic Expanse to both tap, sack and search your library for a basic land, putting it onto the field tapped. There's Temple of the False God to add 2 colourless, only if you control 5 or more lands. And Buried Ruin to add a colourless or sack to return an artifact card from the graveyard to your hand. There's Tomb of the Spirit Dragon to add a colourless or pay and tap to gain 1 life for each colourless creature you control. And to round off this deck tech, we've added in Urza's Mine, Power Plant and Tower to add 1 colourless mana to your mana pool. If you control all 3, then you get to add 2 colourless mana to your mana pool. Urza is a really cool artifact-loving commander from the Brothers' War, and one whilst I don't think will become a big staple in the EDH commander tier list, it is one that is fun and a bit different if you wanted a new commander to budget build around. There we have it, that is the $55 budget Urza Prince of Kroog deck tech. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe down below for all things MTG. Check out our link tree in the description box below for all of our social media and affiliate links. For now though, I'm all tapped out, so I'll see you in the next video.